This week on ANN, the president of Andrews University addresses issues related to the historical treatment of African American students and creates plans for reconciliation.
Seventh-day Adventist Church's worldwide membership surpasses 20 million.
And a film about Desmond Doss, the Seventh-day Adventist non-combatant medic from World War II, receives 2 Oscars.
These stories and more are coming up.
This is ANN, a service of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church.
Thanks so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, the president of Andrews University, along with other top administrators of the school, announced his commitment last week to bring about racial reconciliation on its campus, especially with African American students.
The announcement was made during a weekly chapel service that is held for the entire student body.
The president of the university, Andrea Luxton, reemphasized her goal of making strides for healing on its campus.
Special chapel service was in response to a video that was created by students at Andrews University that prompted a widespread conversation about issues related to the historical treatment of African Americans on its campus.
The video, called "It Is Time AU," which featured current African American students of the university, received more than 135,000 views over 4 days.
After Luxton's address, which was warmly received by students, a formal response in the form of a video was shown of Luxton and other campus leaders addressing every point that was raised by the It Is Time AU video. The response was also filmed and produced in a similar manner.
I am sorry. As an organization, we have been guilty of racial bias, of making our faculty, staff, and students of color feel less than. We have not listened well enough. We have not been sensitive enough. And we have missed opportunities to take action where action should have been taken. For that, I apologize.
I am sorry. Andrews University's history has been marked by systemic racism. In the past, official policies have included forced segregation in the cafeteria and prohibitions against interracial dating. For that, I apologize.
I am sorry. Explicit racist acts committed against black students have been part of our history, including cross burnings on our campus in 1969 and 1974. Hateful words and actions have been directed against our students. Even today, our minority students have been misunderstood and marginalized. For that, I apologize.
So I believe the only answer is a simple but profoundly challenging one.
We must do better.
And be better.
We must do better.
And be better.
We must do better and be better. To begin, this progress will be achieved by direct, frequent, and meaningful interactions about the changes we need. In the classroom, from the pulpit, in meeting rooms and offices, and even around cafeteria tables.
Among many steps the university plans to take in its efforts toward reconciliation, Andrews will create a cabinet-level position that will report directly to the president about matters of diversity for faculty and students.
Visit andrews.edu to watch the full formal apology and learn about additional steps the university will take for this matter. You know, Tanya, as an alum of Andrews and an African American, it's dear to my heart, and I'm glad they're taking steps in the right direction.
That's always good to hear.
Yeah,
it's true. It's official. There are now more than 20 million Seventh-day Adventists around the world. The chief archivist and statistician of the Adventist Church, David Trim, has more about the significant milestone.
David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Elroy, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So we understand that the 2016 membership report has just closed. Where do we stand now as far as our current membership?
The great news, Elroy, is that our membership as of December 31, 2016 was 20,008,779. So wow. We have for the first time passed that 20 million milestone.
Wow, wow, wow. So what factors have led to this increase in membership?
It's partly due to another record year of accessions. Accessions, of course, is the combination of baptisms and professions of faith. Most people are baptized, but there's always some of the others. Now, the previous record year for accessions was actually 2015, and indeed the last 3 years have now each been record years. Wow. The previous record before that was 2011, just in case anyone's interested. And actually last year, a total of 1,314,950 people joined the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So that, again, that's a record, but it's also the first year that baptisms has exceeded 1.2 2 million. So there's a couple of records there.
Oh my. So looking at the major total member involvement campaign in Rwanda and other evangelistic efforts around the world, how did this play a part in this rapid growth?
Total member involvement, or TMI, was crucial in setting up the record number of accessions. So this year there were 1,271,305 baptisms. Now that's 88,000 and a bit more than last year. So if you think that last year there were 100,000 baptisms approximately in Rwanda, that explains the difference. If we hadn't run that campaign in Rwanda and had those major evangelistic initiatives, sure, we wouldn't have that same figure for baptisms. Of course, it's going to be interesting to see what the total harvest will be from TMI this year in the inter-European division and other big evangelistic pushes that are going on around the world.
Sure. And we hope the TMI and the other evangelistic efforts can help with this rapid growth.
Amen.
David, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The major motion picture about the heroic acts of the non-combatant Seventh-day Adventist Army medic who saved 75 men during World War II was awarded 2 Oscars on February 26th. The film Hacksaw Ridge won in the categories of Best Film Editing and Best Sound Mixing. The Oscars, which are commonly referred to as the Academy Awards, are the most prestigious awards in the United States that honor cinematic achievements. In response, leaders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church's North American territory issued the following statement. The Seventh-day Adventist Church in North America would like to congratulate the filmmakers of Hacksaw Ridge for winning 2 Academy Awards. We celebrate your God-given creativity, talent, and artistry that helped bring the story of Desmond T. Doss and his faith to millions of people. We celebrate your accomplishments and thank you for sharing the story of this remarkable, humble, and God-fearing man with the world.
The president of Oakwood University in the U.S. state of Alabama was among other presidents of historically black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, who met with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, this week. Leslie Pollard was among the 60 HBCU presidents and chancellors who had a chance to meet with the president, Vice President Mike Pence, and Education Secretary Betsy DeVoe in the Oval Office. The HBCU leaders discussed ways the administration could help improve education and enhance the infrastructure of their schools. Participants of the listening session also shared expert insights on policy issues impacting their individual campuses. The HBCU listening session also included representatives from several executive departments and agencies such as the Department of Housing and Urban Development and White House offices such as the Office of Management and Budget and the Office of Legislative Affairs.
In a federal district of Mexico's capital city, a Seventh-day Adventist primary school was listed among the top 20 of the region. According to an online grading system of primary schools of excellence, Miguel Angel Asturias Adventist School was ranked 17 out of more than 3,000 schools in the district of Benito Juarez. The achievements of Miguel Angel Asturias Adventist School and the other highly ranked schools were shared by several news outlets in Mexico City. The school serves 136 students from pre-kindergarten to 9th grade. Students of Miguel Angel Asturias are known to excel in English spelling bees. According to the school's principal, Esther Ortiz Rocha, the students' accomplishments in the spelling bees are no accident. Ortiz said, quote, "We believe that the success of the school has to do with the importance that each student is given in both the English and Spanish programs. We follow a personalized study plan for each student with ongoing evaluations." Leaders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church's territory for the Inter-American region also praised the school's high ranking. The education leader responsible for overseeing primary and secondary school in the territory, Faye Patterson, said, quote, "The Asturias School is one of our best schools across the I-80 territory. Their quality education, the latest use of technology, and their bilingual program has placed the school among the top schools in our division territory."
Building on the momentum that launched last October during a conference with the focus of empowering Adventist schools worldwide, education leaders throughout Africa organized the first comprehensive training of its kind for the entire continent.
The 5-day Leadership in Education and Development, or LEAD conference, which began on February 15th, was attended by 239 Seventh-day Adventist educators.
The first Pan-African Regional LEAD Conference took place in Rwanda's capital city, Kigali, and drew participants from 3 of the church's territories in Africa and the Indian Ocean.
The event marked the first phase of the implementation of a decision made at the LEAD conference during last year's annual council.
At the church's major business meeting of its second highest governing body, the executive committee leaders agreed to extend training to other church educational leaders and educators on the ground and around the world.
The training would include establishing measurable goals to increase the number of schools and Adventist students, increasing retention and academic excellence, developing educational resources for alternative models of education, and identifying innovations addressing the affordability and sustainability of Adventist schools.
The next Regional Lead Conference will take place May 30 through June 4 in Slovenia.
Coming up, humanitarians in Romania build and repair 10 houses in 10 days for families in need.
But up next, Adventist leaders celebrate the sustained momentum of the Total Member Involvement Series in Eastern Europe.
Peter and John were called in by the chief priests and elders about their preaching. They tried to defend their actions, but the leaders were very hard on them. They were commanded not to speak or teach in the name of Jesus. After further threats, they let them go. Peter and John went back to their own people and reported all that the chief priests and elders had said.
When we heard all this, we immediately raised our voices in prayer to God. The entire group prayed for Peter and John. We prayed for God to give boldness to these two humble servants. Such intense prayer I had not experienced for a long time. After we had prayed, suddenly, the whole place was shaken.
People were filled with the Holy Spirit, and Peter and John went out and gave witness with great power and grace. They witnessed throughout the land about the resurrection of their Savior.
Welcome back.
Now for more news. Leaders in Eastern Europe are celebrating the results of the Total Member Involvement Evangelistic Series that has introduced more people to Christ than ever before in the region.
In the highly secularized territory of countries including Romania, Ukraine, Bulgaria, and Armenia, community members have been receptive to the series thanks to months of prayer, cooking classes, health seminars, literature distribution, and other preparations.
The emphasis of the work in Eastern Europe is to empower members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Large turnouts to the 4,300 meeting sites in the region have inspired leaders and members alike.
In response, the president of the Adventist World Church, Ted Wilson, said, quote, "We have seen God's Spirit moving in such a marked manner. Church members have become so involved and are so excited to see many people coming to the foot of the cross and asking for baptism."
In coordination with the Total Member Involvement Campaign, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency in Romania coordinated the dedication of 10 newly constructed houses for people in need. The first house was dedicated in Borsia on February 13, and the final house was dedicated on February 24 in the village of Mircea Voda. The final house was built for a disabled woman, Vasile Vasilica, and her children. Every day, Vasile would go to the mayor of the town and ask for land to build a house. When she was finally granted land, she continued to petition the mayor for sand to build bricks. She started the construction of the home on her own before the local government and church asked ADRA Romania to step in. The final dedication was attended by the local mayor, the president of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Mutania and Dobrogia, and the executive director of ADRA Romania, as well as local pastors, volunteers, and donors. Other home dedications were attended by the president of the church's inter-European territory, Mario Brito, and the president of Adventist World Radio and coordinator of Total Member Involvement, Dwayne McKee. 10 Houses in 10 Days is a project within the Finally Home initiative, which aims to improve the living situations of at-risk families. Through the program, more than 65 people will receive new homes with the support of at least 350 ADRA volunteers in partnership with more than 10 local governments and schools.
Several dignitaries honored a milestone anniversary for the Adventist Development and Relief Agency last week in the nation of Madagascar. A special ceremony for ADRA Madagascar's 25th anniversary was held at the American Center, Madagascar, which houses the United States Embassy. The appreciation of ADRA's significant contributions to the nation was evident with the presence of several officials, including the Prime Minister of Madagascar, Olivier Mahafali Solandrasana, and the Ambassador for the U.S. Embassy in Madagascar, Robert Yamate. The government representatives warmly welcomed and thanked the ADRA delegation for the agency's commitment toward improving the nation's food security, education, health, and economic development. ADRA leaders who received the recognition included Vice President of Finances for ADRA International, Michael Kruger, the Executive Director for ADRA Africa, Okintayo Adeyemi, and the National Director of ADRA Madagascar, Peter Delhove. The President of the Adventist Church's Indian Ocean Territory, Jasmine Herinirina, was also acknowledged during the ceremony.
Is your church prepared to respond to a crisis that would threaten the safety of its members in the middle of a service? If the answer is no, the Seventh-day Adventist Church's insurance company, Adventist Risk Management, has designated a special day to help you safeguard your ministries against worst-case scenarios. Adventist Risk Management has more. Remember to visit AdventistRisk.org/Safety Sabbath for additional resources and information.
And finally, for the news this week, leaders of the church's Geoscience Research Institute are encouraging viewers in the United States to watch a special film that discusses how the biblical book of Genesis relates to today's world.
The movie is Genesis History, features an Adventist scientist, Arthur V. Chadwick, Ph.D. of Southwestern Adventist University.
It will be shown in select theaters on Tuesday, March 7th.
There are many questions about the history of the Earth. What major events might have occurred to shape it? Was there a global flood? A Big Bang? How did the Earth become filled with so many amazing and diverse creatures? I'm Del Tackett, the creator of the Truth Project, and I've spent a year asking a wide variety of scientists to help me better understand the world we see around us.
Well, it was a story that we all learned in grammar school. Colorado River, over tens of millions of years, cut the Grand Canyon. Most geologists have jettisoned that idea. You can't imagine a canyon enduring that long with erosion. Time is not a magic wand that solves all the geologic problems of the world.
The past is the key to the present. You want to understand why the way the world is today, you've got to understand what happened in the past.
You take the present processes and extend it into the past, not unreasonable, but there's evidence in the rocks themselves that you can't do that.
If the fossils of dinosaurs have been dated incorrectly, then it's very likely the fossils of any organism have been dated incorrectly, and therefore then the geologic ages themselves are incorrect.
I believe in change over time, but I'm not an evolutionist. The shark has the ability to change, to adapt, to respond dynamically to the environment. But there are still sharks. And when we look at the fossil record, there are still sharks.
We've been told to look at a history of the Earth that is millions and billions of years old. Is there evidence that it could have been created in only a matter of days?
You really need to begin by looking at the governing paradigm about the history of life and the history of the universe.
We've got two possibilities, and all the natural history museums in the country all give you just one of those views.
Is there a recorded history that shows us a different view?
And when we look at the fossil record, we can see that complexity is all there from the beginning, and this begs the question of where did all this complexity come from?
An ancient history recorded in the book of Genesis.
You have this notion that there is providence that is then worked out across time in a linear, understandable, traceable fashion.
We'll come face to face with an earth-shattering question. Is Genesis history?
For more information, visit isgenesishistory.com.
Coming up, find out what happened this week in Adventist history.
But up next, learn how the world drastically changed in 312 AD.
Welcome back.
We are now happy to present the start of a new video series that is sure to inspire.
To help make the history of Christianity compelling, the Youth Ministries Department of the Adventist Church's Northern England region produced a video series called Lineage.
Each episode highlights a key moment in Christian history from early Celtic churches on Scottish islands to significant figures such as John Wycliffe, Martin Luther, and John Calvin.
The timely release of the series coincides with the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation, which was catapulted when Martin Luther nailed his 95 Thesis to the Wittenberg castle door.
The first episode of Lineage, Constantine, Compromise, and Controversy, unpacks how the conversion of Constantine in 312 AD would go on to launch events that would separate true believers from those who went along with popular theology.
As we trace back our spiritual lineage to the early centuries, we find the Christian church a maligned religion. It was not popular. Many of the Christians in the early centuries paid the ultimate price for their faith with their lives. The Colosseum in Rome stands today as a testament of this fact. Under pagan Rome, the Christian church struggled along, but one thing was sure. The intensity of the persecution kept the church free from nominal and lukewarm Christians. If you were a Christian, you had to be all in. There was no middle ground. But in the 4th century, an event would come along that would change all of that dramatically. The conversion of Constantine changed the course of history for the whole of Christendom, and the roots of that come down here to York, England. In 306 AD, Constantine was declared emperor here. His father, Constantinus, was in Britain from 305 to 306 AD, and Constantine was with him until his death. He was then declared emperor, but it was not to be a smooth sailing. There were counterclaims to the emperorship from Licinius and Maxentius. And it was before a battle with Maxentius that Constantine felt he needed more help than just the soldiers he had, and so he sought the help of God. He believed he saw a cross in the sky and heard the words, "By this sign you shall conquer." He took this as a sign to convert to Christianity, and a major switch began to take place. Rome would go from being pagan to papal, from paganism to professed Christianity. Many historians debate the authenticity of Constantine's conversion. Was it a deep-rooted biblical conviction, or was it a political ploy to keep a divided empire together? One thing is sure, though, that after his conversion, practices crept into the church that previously had no place there. Temples that were pagan were changed to Christian. The Pantheon in Rome was changed into a Christian church, and the names of gods were changed to Christian saints. For example, Jupiter became Saint Peter, and the list goes on. While some were happy for these changes and welcomed the lack of persecution and their newfound status, there were many Christians all over Europe who resisted these changes. For them, the persecution continued as they stayed out of line with the Mother Church. These were Christians who were maintaining the pure apostolic faith that was handed down to them over the years. There were scattered groups of people all over Europe, in northern Italy, in southern France, the Celtic Church here in Britain, and in various other places. The Bible refers to them as the church in the wilderness in Revelation chapter 12, verses 6 and 14. They were not always the biggest, they were not always the largest, but God would always have a people that were true to Him and that were faithful to His word. And so from this point on, two branches of the church would emerge. The recognized, the mainstream, but the compromised church, and then the persecuted, often the smaller, but the pure church. The question for us today is, which one of these two are we a part of? May we never compromise truth for popularity. May we be faithful to God and to His word, no matter what the situation is.
Visit lineagejourney.com to receive updates about the series and to connect to its social media pages.
And finally, for today's program, let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history.
This week, learn about a missionary family who served in Iran.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On February 27, in 1913, Daniel Victor Kubrok was born in Yale, Virginia. Daniel was of a Russian background, and in 1945, after 6 years in pastoral ministry, he and his wife Gladys, with their children Charles and Martha, went as missionaries to Iran, where they worked among Russian and Azeri-speaking communities in the north of the country. Here you see the Kubroks, photographed just before they sailed for Iran. They served 6 years in Iran and another 6 years in Lebanon, where 2 more children, Frederick and Edith, were born to them. And after 15 years of pastoral ministry in the United States, Daniel and Gladys returned to Iran in 1973, serving there 3 more years before accepting a call to Elmshaven, for Gladys was a great-granddaughter of Ellen G. White. They became curators of Elmshaven and remained in the area for the rest of their lives. Daniel died in December 2006, just short of his 94th birthday. Also on February 27, just 3 years later in 1916, the building of the International Publishing Association in College View, Nebraska, was destroyed by fire. The association had been established in September 1903 for the purpose of supplying publications in foreign languages to immigrant communities throughout the United States. The association was eventually taken over by Pacific Press. And on February 28, 1845, Thomas M. Preble, a Millerite minister, published in the journal The Hope of Israel an article showing that the 7th day of the week is the Sabbath. Sadly, Preble himself gave up the 7th-day Sabbath only 3 years later. But it was thanks to his article that Joseph Bates, co-founder of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, first learned of the Sabbath truth. That was This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching A&N. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
In the meantime, join our global conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can connect with Adventists worldwide through more stories, photos, and videos. Visit Facebook/Adventist News, Twitter @Adventist Church, and Instagram @Adventist Church.
Our good news for this week comes from the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 15, verse 58. The passage says, "So, my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord, for you know that nothing you do for the Lord is ever useless."
Amen. And that's our program for this week. And remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.